larger than life. He'll give you strife. He's Todd. He's tall, he's mean, he's labeling machine. He's Todd. Rides a motorbike, he'll tell you what it's like. He's Todd. Don't know what he'll say, he'll scare the kids away. He's Todd. He's Todd.
Hey, happy freaking Thursday. Good to see everybody out there. Bixie, I survived yet another Bixie. I've been out there for a long time. This Bixie was quite different, however. So I know some of you out there attended Bixie. There's some folks that I invited to the show. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. But Bixie was interesting, to say the least. I think it was still a good show, but those who didn't go this year, it was probably about the third of the size of what it has been in the past. So, and then the other thing too is everything, you're wearing a mask. So you are masked up everywhere you go in Vegas. And if behind the booth, what do they call it, mask knee or whatever? But yeah, it was somewhat difficult. But again, it was great for me. What else is going on? So for those who haven't joined, this is BS with Todd. And a lot of you in Vegas got to hear some of the other BS that I'm known for. But for HR and legal purposes, which I know you're out there, all right? I know you're watching like a hawk every week. But this is Brother Solutions with Todd. And I got to tell you, we've been talking about labeling for 40 episodes. That's a lot, 40 episodes. And so, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because the well is run dry. Y'all know I like to talk. I like to hear myself talk, not my wife so much. But nonetheless, there's 40 episodes of stuff out there. So if you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, go to bswithtodd.com. But the way that we're kind of shifting gears is this, and this is why the show was great for me. I'm going to start focusing on other manufacturers, other product lines. I'm going to focus on contractors. I'm going to focus on integrators, and I'm going to focus on distribution. And what I'm going to do is I am going to invite those industry professionals. It's hard to correlate professional with this show, but you know what? I'm going to try to bring professionalism to this show. And so I'm going to invite some industry professionals, and I was kind of flabbergasted to see how many of these manufacturers were willing to come on board and support the cause and talk about their new products and innovations. But more importantly, well, I shouldn't say more importantly, but along with that, we're going to talk about the labeling applications that go with those particular manufacturers, or what Brother brings to the table for our distribution partners, and even from a contractor level, how we've been able to help our contractor base out there. So with that being said, I mean, I've got enough material now for at least another 40 episodes. So stay tuned. I think that's going to be really exciting. So today's topic, what else am I forgetting? I think that's it. I think you're all caught up. So today's topic is an important topic to me because I was a contractor at one point when I actually used to work for a living. Oh, shout out to Sam. Hold on. Not my ugly older brother, Sam. Hold on a second. The true story. So I'm on the Southwest flight back, and I got my headphones in, listening to music. But in the meantime, I'm checking, LinkedIn and blah, 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 blah. And so a guy sitting next to me, actually he was in the middle. I felt very sorry for him the whole ride back. But as we were coming in, I hear, "Hey, are you Todd?" I don't know this guy from Adam. And, usually when somebody says that, I deny it. But I said, yeah. And I said, are you clairvoyant? And he goes, no, I kind of saw your LinkedIn, and I think we're kind of hooked up in a way. So anyway, Sam from Hubble is joining us today. So I want to give a shout out to Sam. And we're talking about Hubble coming on to be a guest now. So anyway, as we all know, it's a very small industry, small world within the industry. So anyway, shout out to Sam at Hubble. It's good to meet a younger, better looking Sam than the one that I know. So let's go on to the subject at hand, which is the cost of labeling. I can tell you when I was a contractor back in the day, there was lots of money to be had in the business, all right? And labeling was kind of an afterthought where everybody would just, throw an ancillary number in there or put an extra 30 points on top of that and then hope they came out ahead. Being a former tightwad contractor and a current tight ass, I can tell you that I did business a little bit differently, is that I knew what each label was costing me as far as a consumable, whether it be a patch panel, cable wrap, the 66 block, back then, a 110, if you will. So I knew what every label was costing me. And believe it or not, yes, I was keeping track of zip ties on the floor. It even became worse with plenum zip ties when these knuckleheads would leave plenum zip ties on the floor. Rolls of tape, left in the closet and wasted pull string. And again, so I ran a pretty profitable business, and I survived 2000 quite well when some of my competitors didn't. So labeling is part of that. And I'm always taken back back in the day, when I go out to these contractors for site visits, and I'd ask them, how much are you spending on your labeling? And I would say 9 out of 10 times it's a deer in the headlight look. So what I do is I break it down for them. And it's more of an educational process on labeling because, again, you've got the hundreds of thousands of millions of feet of cable going in. You've got your racks and cabinets, and you've got your fibers and LIUs, and you've got all this stuff going in. And then there's little bitty labeling. That counts actually for a big portion of what people are doing out there. And number one, if you're using the wrong product, it's costing you more. Number two, if you're not labeling correctly, it's going to cost you more. So it's more of an educational process mixed with my boyish good looks and impeccable vernacular that helps sell the brother product. And there really is no hard sell. Again, it's just education. In one case in particular, there was a contractor in Texas that was doing a lot of cell tower work. And I got invited to go out and talk to them. And I'm not going to mention any competitors because that is it's not professional and it's rude, which, that's me. All right. I'm professional and I'm very kind. But nonetheless, is that we did an analysis. I asked them up front, what are you using? And they told me, and how much do you think you're spending? And they couldn't give me an answer. So we did a whiteboard. And long story short, they ended up buying 273 the PTE 550s, one fell swoop. Because what we did is after the education on the whiteboard, and numbers don't lie. I may BS, right? But numbers don't lie. There was a savings of $73,000 a year that they didn't know was being wasted. That's huge. So, I don't always stumble into things like that on a daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly basis. But you know what? When I do, it's more of educating on the actual cost of labeling. So with that particular contractor, $73,000 savings a year. So their initial investment of 273 of those plus tape was very minuscule. And they're a very good partner of mine. I think that someone here know who I'm talking about, so thank you very much. So some of the things, and I'm going to put on my old-timey contractor hat and my tight-ass hat, and some of the things that I encountered as a contractor, I'm going to share with you today. Coming home last night, because Sam was interrupting me the whole time next to me, I really hadn't thought. In fact, I told him, he asked me, I said, I got no idea what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So this morning I got up 5:30 in the morning, boss, every morning, 5:30. Anyway, I got up and jotted down a few things. I think this is the first time on BS with Todd I've actually jotted down a few things, but I'm going to go over some of those things and the things to think about. So whether you're a rep out there, a brother rep, whether you're a potential brother contractor, current brother contractor or user, or one of our distribution reseller partners, this is all very much common sense, and it's not BS, because again, at the end of the day, the numbers that this stuff equates to, they don't lie. So a couple things off the top of my head. You got four different areas. You got four factors in here. You got your cost of consumables. All right. Let me talk about that for a second. If you're not using Brother, if you're using one of my competitors, if you just compare the tapes alone. Some of my competitors have 18 feet of material on there. Some of my competitors have 20 feet of material on there. Most of my competitors, and let's just take an average cost of a tape. An average cost of a tape on my competitor's side is $40 a cassette, average. And a lot of times they're not giving you a whole lot of material. Brother tape, except for our heat shrink, is 26.2 feet of tape. And a lot of times what we're finding is our prices are half. So just do the math. Now you're getting more tape for less money. Again, numbers don't lie. All right. So it's important to take a look at what you're using from a consumable standpoint and do the numbers before you do the job, because what that equates to at the end of the day is, what is that individual label costing you? You take that, you times it by the thousands of labels, and if you can save a nickel a label, it's thousands of nickels. That's a lot of nickels. That equates to profitability, or even saving your customer money. All right. So again, take a look at your consumables, and specifically on the cassette system. I'll go into some of the sheet labeling a little bit later. So number two is cost of the actual printers themselves, the devices, the mechanisms, the engines, if you will. I can tell you this unequivocally. I hope I said that right. Kate, I hope you got that. I think I said that right. But if you take a look at the cost of the printers and the life of the printers, you'd be very surprised. Our number one seller, the PTE 550, and we'll go into a little bit of that in a minute here, is incredibly inexpensive. Right? If you don't know the price of that, please reach out to one of my distribution partners. You'd be absolutely flabbergasted at the cost of this thing. Very, very low cost. 2-year exchange warranty too. So that thing is going to be pumping tape out for at least 2 years. If it breaks down, we give you another one. All right. So that's another thing to consider. Labor. All right. And here's where really nobody gets into the weeds. It's really easy to figure out the cost of the consumables. Very easy to figure out the cost of the printers. But what is labor actually costing you? And there's a lot of factors going into this labor part of it. And we'll go into that a little bit later. Mistakes. Do you account for mistakes? Well, I hope you're accounting for mistakes. I used to put 20% mistake count. It could be higher depending upon your crew, right? But I used to put a little bit extra in there because I know they're going to have mistakes, and that's something you need to factor for. It really is. If you don't, the chances are you're going to lose money out there. And that goes into the labor portion of it as well, because again, the more labor it takes for the labeling, the actual labeling itself, then you got to factor that in, number one. But then labor for the mistakes. If you make a mistake, you got to fix it. But what is that costing you? So again, I'm not using this as Todd's Bible, but I can tell you as a former contractor, I used to put 20% in there and then hope for the best. All right. There's applications of the different types of what could be cable wraps, patch panels, blah blah blah, self-laminating. All right, versus what Brother has traditionally. But let's go back to the labor part. All right. And actually, you know what? It's 10:12, and I can go on for an hour today. I really can, but I'm not going to. The labor portion of this thing, again, is there's many factors in there. So let's say that you're using, and I use these out in the field myself. Let's say you're using a traditional 8.5 by 11 sheet label, self-laminating sheet label. Are you factoring in for the time to do the database? Are you factoring in for the time that it's going to take to print those? Are you factoring in the toner or the ink? All right. And then getting out to the job site and getting these in your technician's hands, are you factoring in what it's taking to do the job correctly. And we're going to talk about that in a second. That's something that gets in my craw all the time. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So you got the application portion of it itself, right? And then you've got things like labels falling off. Well, you got to replace them. Are you using the right label for the right job? Right? If it's not brother, it could be the wrong label, right? Labels fall off all the time. Do you take in consideration heat factors in data centers? Do you take in consideration the fans in those cabinets that are blowing at 100 miles an hour? Trust me, I see it all the time, right? Fading of labels. There's another area too. If you're not using the right label under, let's say, UV lighting or outdoor situations, OSP, that label at some point needs to be replaced. So again, that's costing you more money. So it's very, very important to use the right label. I show this every week, right? And we've done 40 shows right now, and the water seems to be dissipating. But here's one of my flags with one of my cable wraps inside here. And we're talking a year and a half now, Kate, something like that. But again, if you use the right label, look, folks, it's not going to come off. And this is a crappy environment. And inside of my new studio, when it's hotter than hell out here, it does get very hot, and there is a little bit of humidity, believe it or not. But there's even different factors in here. But being inside water, I'd say it's a tough label. So again, it's very important to use the right label. So let's digress, if we will. All right, some of the things that I see on, let's talk about self-laminating label. Self-laminating still has its purposes in certain environments. Not many, but some. So when I was a contractor, we go out and we buy the 8.5, 11 sheets, and then they'd want you to buy the software. Well, as a startup contractor, I'm not going to buy that $300 software. I'm going to try and emulate that software onto an Excel spreadsheet. The problem that I have with that, being that I am a perfectionist, is that you're always a little tick off, and you can note it. Well, at least I can notice it, but you're always a little tick off. All right. So anyway, let's say you print them in the office. All right. And we used to put them in a manila folder. You put them inside a manila folder. And I tell the boys, we're officed in Fort Worth. We're doing work at the Transamerica building, downtown Dallas. Okay, away you go. Right. And so I can tell you many, many times they take this manila folder, they put it on the seat, and then they put their lunchbox on top of it. So you get out to the job site and the labels are smushed, or they spill coffee on them. But the worst part about laminating, right, is this. Laminated labels, they're easy to peel off. Don't get me wrong, all right? There's actually two factors to laminated labels that I'm not a fan of. Self-laminated labels, I should say, because brother labels are laminated. So self-laminating applications. I'm 6'6". I don't stand up because usually I'm usually wearing my jammies or shorts, and so. But believe it or not, I'm 6'6", and so I'm looking at these labels, right, on the back of a patch panel, right? When they're all fingered out, I'm looking at them at a certain direction. And let's say you got a 7-foot patch panel and it's fully loaded. And let's say, my wife walks in all of 5'4". She's not looking at that label at the same angle, same direction. The problem that I have with a self-laminating label is this, all right? When you are looking at a self-laminated label, and here's okay. So there's a self-laminated label right there, all right, where you can see that. Now, what happens if it's twisted a little bit, right? So whether you're looking up or looking down, the best place to see this identifier on a self-laminated label, okay, is when you're looking directly down on it. What that means is this. The techs out in the field have to be articulate enough, and they have to know to put that label in the upright position. Do they do that all the time? Hell no. Right? My guys didn't do it either. And then what they'll do is, if you have to go back and you have to troubleshoot that particular cable, they stick their fingers in there and they twist it just a little bit to try and see that identifier, which could potentially screw up that termination. And then all hell breaks loose, liability and lawsuits, and I've seen it happen. All right. That's one of my problems with self-laminating labels right there. And I'll go into the way that we do a little bit different in a while. Now, brother does have new self-laminating labels. And here I am dogging self-laminating labels. or traditional self-laminating labels. All right. I think self-laminating labels, if you have a campus environment that has used nothing but self-laminating labels, then it makes sense to follow suit, to continue with that so it doesn't look odd. I'm all in favor of that. We have a solution for that now. Brother has not had a solution up until this year. And I've lost a few jobs where they love our product. Obviously, they love me. But they're asking for traditional self-laminating labels. Well, we do have that in a cassette system right now. Would I recommend that on, a brand new job? No, I wouldn't. If you have a spec that is calling for self-laminating labels, I'd recommend you use our new stuff. But again, I personally, as a contractor, just as a contractor, am not a fan of that. The second thing I'm not a fan of is self-laminating labels. When you transport pre-printed labels from point A to point B, there's always going to be a problem. I guarantee it. All right. You got sheet after sheet of self-laminated labels, and the guys are shuffling through them, and they're trying to, they got one here, so there's more labor right there too. Keep that in mind. There's more labor shuffling through all that stuff, but there's always going to be a mistake. And somebody inevitably back at the office is going to get a call, and it happens during certification, right? During certification, when you're out there with your test units and you discover you're one jack off. And so what happens? Everything after that jack has to come off, and you got to wait for a reprint. The contractors out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Have you factored that into your job? The time it takes, unless you have a printer on site, with an inkjet or laser jet, unless you have it on site, And if you're using a handheld, then it really doesn't match what you're trying to do. So again, all those things have to be factored in, all right? And we're going to talk about a solution that the brother has in a minute here. So let's see. We talked about the mistakes we talked about. Mistakes are inevitable on the pre-printed stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a better way of doing it, and I don't think I'm going to ever kill that. It's a monster. It's a monster industry to this day. All right, the old school self-lam, and again, the reason why they did that was initially those things were printed on inkjet printers. So you take the clear tail and you wrap around there. That's fantastic. By the way, all brother tapes, all of them, all right, are laminated, scratch resistant, scuff resistant, oil resistant, gas resistant, water resistant, fade resistant, chemical resistant, UV rated. All right. So again, everything we have is laminated. So what's the difference between a self-laminated label and our laminated label? Big difference. All right. I'm going to show you again. So there's that self-laminated label where you can see right there. All right. Now let's say you're a shorty short. Well, you can't see it. So you try and turn that a little bit so you can see the identifier. Here's a brother traditional cable wrap, and it doesn't matter how you look at it. Doesn't matter whether you're 6'6" or Jamie Brook oversized, 5'1". You can see it from any angle, right? So it repeats that identifier. And I get in arguments all the time. Well, not arguments, discussions with these people that are speccing this stuff in. And I'm like, you tell me where I'm wrong. So far, I haven't been told that I'm wrong. Well, this morning I was told I was wrong, but that has nothing to do with labeling. So there are advantages with using our repeated system. Now, the best thing about laminated sheet labels or pre-printed sheet labels, the absolute best thing about them is that you can just peel and stick, peel and stick, peel and stick, peel and stick. In the old school ways where we used to do it, we used to use the little guy over here, right? And we all did this. We used the little PTD 210s, and we hand type everything in. But then you got to peel the back off of these damn things, and you leave the backings all over the place, and it becomes a mess. And the IT guy calls, and blah blah blah. So that's the best thing I can see about self-laminating sheet labels. Well, hey, do we have a solution for that already? Absolutely, it's right here. But instead of being an 8.5 by 11 sheet, it's basically a 1-inch strip. And you can see where if you do a whole lot of these, just tack this up on the back side of the panel, right? And it's the same properties where I go in and basically I pull off a label and I stick that one, and I pull off the next one and I label that cable. Then I pull off the next one. Now, cost-wise, all right, cost for consumables. I've done the homework. I've done the math. Depending upon, now these are set at Cat 6A cables. Depending upon the actual length of the label, you're looking at 5 to 7 cents per label right here. That's about an average cost. Sheet labels, 8 to 11 cents. So there's a cost advantage right there. So keep that in mind when you're out doing jobs or you're responding to RFPs or RFQs. There is a huge cost savings. So on to the other thing that is pretty cool about the old school way of doing it, all right, and sheet labeling is databases. Who wants to sit there and do this crap all day, right? It's counterproductive. It's a waste of labor, but it's something that we still have to do from time to time. If you got an Excel spreadsheet, use the Excel spreadsheet. You're going to create an Excel spreadsheet for all of your labeling out there, which is probably the same identifiers that you're using for your certification units as well. So you're going to take that Excel spreadsheet, whether it be in somebody else's software or print directly from that software, and it makes life real easy, real easy. So what about this? And I'm going to share my screen here in a second. I'm going to show you a way of and we've been very successful at basically getting that database out in the field where they can print on demand. All right. So let's hypothetically say that Jamie Brook over in Virginia Beach is my boss. Yeah, right. But let's just hypothetically say that. And I'm out here in Vista, California, and I've got a big old data center I'm doing in Vista, California. Jamie's back there doing Excel spreadsheets, and he's not sending them in the mail, right? He's FedExing them or pre-printing them. What he's going to do is he's going to send me a database. And I'm a tech out in the field. Yeah, right. I'm going to receive that database on my phone. Same database, right? So let me share my screen and let me show you how it's done with that same. Let me go here and let's go here and let's share this one. Okay, I think I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know. It looks like it's blinky. Man, you know what? I'm about ready to go in convulsions here. Should we stop? Let's try one more time. So I'm going to share this again. And let's see if we get the blinkies. There we go. All right, so you should see my phone on the screen right now. So I'm a tech out in the field, and I'm in Vista, California, and Jamie Brookover's out in Virginia Beach, and he's sending me thousands and thousands of labels, identifiers. So we have an app on here called iLink and Label, bottom center, all right? So what happens is I get the email with the attachment, and I'm basically going to save that attachment to the iLink and Label you see down below. When I open up the iLink and Label, you can see where I've got it. I can connect to my printer, all right? It uses Wi-Fi, peer-to-peer Wi-Fi, all right? Not anything to do with the internet. But keep in mind, same damn database that you're using to pre-print those self-laminated labels, all right? But now we're printing on demand. All right. So what do? I go into my data. There's all the databases that I've been sent so far. So let's take a look at City Hall. All right. I select City Hall. I can even look at my identifiers right here. Here they are. Man, I got hundreds of labels. Boom, bang, 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 bang. All right. You can either pre-print these and send them out in the field on an 8.5 by 11, or why don't you extract the database into our PTE 550 and print on demand? So again, there's a better solution. Now, going back to the mistakes, and I'm going to stop sharing because I'm afraid of what's going to pop up. Going back to the mistakes, all right? Again, if you discover a mistake on the database or inside the printer, you can immediately fix that mistake. You don't have to wait for a reprint. And so again, I'm concerned, right, that there's a lot of people out there that don't factor all these cost savings in when it comes to labeling. A flag is the same way. You know, I just, to this day, hate's a very strong word, all right? I dislike flags immensely, dislike them. I putting the flag together so the adhesive is perfect and so it's not off a little bit like this. I've got no patience for that. So one of the things to consider, and this was, I think, in last week's episode or maybe the week before, but we have some new flags out. all right, that are really, really easy to put on, even for somebody with no patience like myself. So you take a whole bunch of techs with no patience like myself, all right, and they don't like doing this, right? And they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these things to do, right? They're not happy campers. If you can cut down 50% labor and get a cleaner looking flag, wouldn't you not consider that? Especially this day and age. So anything that you can do to save on the job site, and anything that we can help you do save on the job site, it becomes a win-win situation. And so that's why I really want to talk to more manufacturers out there. We had a great show with AEM a couple of weeks ago, and it just some great talking points. And he was showing, Stephen Cowles was showing his software, and it was just a really good show. So we're going to continue with that. And again, we're going to talk about where these applications, right, best suit what they have to offer. So with that being said, TED 29, if Kate, if you want to throw up what do we got going on? If you want to, our next shows are the special guest. That means I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. That's what that means. Thank you, Kate, for covering my butt. Actually, you know what? There is a slew of people lined up from the manufacturing side. I'm going to have to reach out to them to see if that schedule works. September 23rd, this is going to be a great show. On-demand safety labeling. Our competition has kind of had this market for many, many years. Guess what? New sheriff in town, right? And so we're going to talk about safety labeling. Safety labeling is big anywhere in the low voltage and electrical market, right? On-demand safety labeling. I still see people going into distribution and buying lockout, tagout labels and GHS and stuff like that. Stop doing that. We have your solution for you. That's coming up very shortly. In fact, I think the launch is around mid-September. So great timing on that. As far as contacting me, you can always watch previous episodes on www.bswithtodd.com. All right, got my own URL, huh? So all the previous 39 episodes will be up there, including this one shortly. As far as my contact information, I am in San Diego. Everyone knows how to get a hold of me. If you don't, there I am. Jamie Brook over at Virginia Beach. I mentioned him earlier. Dan Cobb out of Wisconsin. Bruce Page is on PTO. I think he's been on PTO for the past 5 or 6 weeks. So Bruce, just stay on PTO. Rob Dawkins out of North Carolina. And then my glorious leader, which I just did the Bixie conference with, Mr. Craig Robinson. If you got questions, comments, concerns, or if you ever need any bad advice, reach out to, well, me specifically, but please reach out to the team and our slew of manufacturer reps out there. I really, really appreciate all of y'all's support. Look in past episodes, there's a lot of great information out there. And then if you need anything on a one-on-one base, please reach out, contact me. With that being said, have a blessed rest of the week. I know it's Thursday, and I'm going to enjoy the weekend. And so y'all do the same. And again, thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you in 2 weeks.